everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Welcome to the Japan trip roundup video. It's been months in the making, I know. I finished the Japan series from our trip of January 2020 about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago, and I have been saying that I'm going to be doing a trip roundup video. This will be this video. We'll be having a chat today about the trip planning, some of the choices that we made for some of the places that we're going to, route and how we decided our route, a little bit about hotels, the favorite places that we visited, anything that we would have done differently, and a few other bits and pieces that I can think about to put in there. Oh, savings on the Japan Rail Pass. Cannot forget savings on the Japan Rail Pass. So yeah, sorry I've been away for a little bit, but anyway, at least we're back now with this. Let's kick off. At the end, as normal, I'll do a little bit about what's happening on the channel next. I'm not 100% about that, but let's have a chat about it anyway. All right, anyway, let's go. We're gonna start off with how we planned our trip. Okay, let's go. Liam and I were in Japan in this January pretty much for the whole month. It was kind of crazy actually. I wanted to go back to Japan for 1 whole month ever since we had left Japan when we came home after living there in the beginning of 2016. Actually, I wanted to return for a couple of months every single year, but that was sort of harder to put into practice than I thought it was going to be. And so I really wanted to make this trip happen. It was a little bit tricky because obviously taking a month off of work is not really something that people can do easily. So what I actually managed to work out with the people I was working for is that I would work a little bit whilst I was in Japan. So even though we were there for a month, and actually it was a little bit over a month, we left on the 28th of December and came back on the 31st of January. Even though we were there for a little over a month, I worked maybe sort of somewhere between 12 to 15 days whilst I was there, and I worked British working hours as well. So I was working in the afternoons and evenings so that we can make that happen. So whenever we plan a trip, I start out with a map, like one of the ones behind me. I actually have a huge Google map, which I pin loads of interesting places on. So whenever I see things in tweets or Instagram posts or anything that I like, I just pin it onto the Google map so that I have it. And when I go to plan my next Japan trip, I can sort of plot a route. So I started out with my mega map and kind of like limited things down based on the time of year that we were going. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the time of year that we went, but perhaps now is a good time. Obviously we went in January for the whole month, and we were very lucky to have made that choice. If we were a month later, and definitely 2 months later, it's likely that the trip would have been completely cancelled because of the COVID situation, obviously. So by some sheer luck, we managed to plan the trip in January of this year. So going in January meant we had to be sort of aware of the things that were going to be closed during winter. Now there are a lot of things which are closed in Japan in winter, and most of them are hiking related. So there was a few things that I really wanted to do, like Kamikochi, which we weren't going to be able to do this time because those things just don't open up until sort of April time, or when the weather starts to get a lot warmer. Climbing Fuji is another big one. You can only do that a couple of months in the year. So there was a few things like that we just definitely weren't going to be able to do. So that sort of discredited a bunch of stuff, and actually some areas as well, because some areas were going to be super snowy or very cold. We actually had a very long-standing plan to go to Sendai this time, but after finding out how cold it can be in January in Sendai, we actually retracted that. We doubled backed on that. We changed our minds and decided to spend a little bit more time in Nagano Prefecture instead, which worked out very nicely. Sendai we will get to in another trip's time when we can travel again for sure. Now let's have a chat about some of the places that we wanted to go and see. We actually have a pretty interesting way of finding new places that we want to go to, or prioritizing places that we want to go to. If you've been on the channel for a long time, you'll know that I really love japanguide.com. It's my favorite site for finding out information about places to visit in Japan. They have a very interesting spot system for categorizing some of the more like interesting places or the best places to go and visit. Like 1 spot means it's absolutely amazing, and 2 spots is like unbelievable, and 3 spots is like something. I don't know, it's a crazy system anyway. But it's we found it very, very helpful for finding amazing places to go and see. One of the things that we found quite interesting when we were looking through all the spot places that we haven't visited was so many of them were temples in Kyoto that we just hadn't got to yet. Kyoto has so many amazing places, and of all the times that we've been there, there was still so many temples and shrines mostly that we just hadn't got to, because you always prioritize the big things when you go to Kyoto. So anyway, so we sort of decided to go to a bunch of those places. I also wanted to spend a decent amount of time in some of the places we rushed through previously. So we've been to Hiroshima before, but last time we went, we must have spent 1 day, maybe 2 nights there. So this time I wanted to spend more time there. And that was the same with Matsuyama as well. So even though those are 2 places I've been to, I kind of wanted to go again and be a little bit more relaxed and see a little bit, you know, a few more things. So I'll go through our route. Last time we did one of these Japan Roundup videos, I was a little bit more proud of the route then than I am now, and I'll sort of talk through it. We started off the beginning of our journey in Tokyo, and we actually spent 3 nights there. I don't have much vlog footage of that time because we were sort of just hanging around with some friends there. The reason why we spent those 3 nights in Tokyo was because that was actually coming up to the New Year period. So things were still open, but you know, as we hit the New Year's Day and into the sort of 3 days after New Year's Day, things tend to be closed, like museums and such. So on New Year's Day, we actually got on a bullet train, and bullet trains do run on New Year's Day, even though it's a massive national holiday in Japan, and we went to Kyoto. We chose to spend the New Year season in Kyoto because one of the big things to do in Japan throughout the New Year season is to visit temples. It's called Hatsumode. And so, oh, shrines, temples, shrines, Shinto shrines, so visit shrines. It's called Hatsumode. It's a huge tradition. So we knew that if we visited Kyoto, there would be so many things open that we could do at that time, and that was going to be the best use of our time. As I mentioned previously, there was a bunch of stuff for us to do in Kyoto, so we hung out there visiting some amazing things, including Uji and Daigo and the Byodoin, which was just phenomenal. During the time in Kyoto, we did a small trip to Osaka, and I'm still happy with the route at this time. We went over to Hiroshima, spent our 4 days there, and then on to Matsuyama by boat. By boat. I'm still so proud that we managed to do that. It was amazing. We took a boat from Hiroshima port to Matsuyama and then took a train into Matsuyama city centre. It was not covered by the JR Pass. Very few boats are covered by the JR Pass, but this one isn't. So we had to pay for that, which is a bit silly financially, but I really wanted to take this boat journey. We spent a few days in Matsuyama and going to see the castle again, which I have seen before, but it was just always such a lovely day every time we go up there, and taking our chairlifts. Taking our chairlifts as well was pretty cool. From Matsuyama, we took a huge train route. We went over the Shikoku Island, over the Great Seto Bridge, back to Kyoto stations, the kind of crossing over where we've been before, which is like one of the things I have a weird thing about. I don't like to cross over where we've been before, but this is how things were working out. Back to Kyoto station, and then we took the Thunderbird train. It's kind of one of the reasons why we did this route, because I desperately wanted to take the Thunderbird train, mostly because of the name, but it was also an awesome train that took us up to Kanazawa. So we stayed 1 night in Kanazawa before taking a train over to Nakanojo to go to Shima Onsen. So this is the point where things get a little bit funky. Actually, the easiest way for you to get to Shima Onsen is to go direct out of Tokyo, but we were all the way over in Matsuyama. We were actually considering doing this trip in reverse, so like flipping all of our plans, but we had to be in sort of that area of Japan because in a few days time we were going to go to Shirakawa-go, and we had set tickets to be at Shirakawa-go for a very specific day, which was for the evening light up, and I booked them a long time ago before I started planning where we were going to be for every single day. So to make everything work, we kind of had to like haul up butts all the way from Matsuyama through Kanazawa to Shima Onsen, spend 2 wonderful nights in Shima Onsen, and then come back to Kanazawa again before going back south to stay in Takayama for a few nights, so that we were driving distance away from Shirakawa-go. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have stayed in Kanazawa either of those times. We kind of wanted to stay in Kanazawa because we really enjoyed it last time, and as I said previously, I wanted to spend some more time in places that we'd rush through, and Kanazawa was one of those places. But by the time we arrived and had left and taken our train journeys and done everything, there wasn't really much time for us to do anything in Kanazawa but grab some food really quickly and go to sleep to get ready for the next day. So actually both our journeys there were fabulous. Every journey on a Japanese train is fabulous, but staying there was nice but not absolutely necessary, and we probably could have picked somewhere a little bit closer to stay for both of the times that we stayed there. But anyway, we live and learn. After spending some time in Takayama, we then left to go back to Nagano, back down the Hokuriku Shinkansen. So the Hokuriku Shinkansen is the one that shoots out of Tokyo and goes northwest out to Kanazawa. We spent a lot of time on that line. A lot of time, but yeah, we hopped on over to Nagano and again stayed a little bit more in a city where we have been before, went to see the beautiful Zenkouji temple, and then spent an unbelievable day in Togakushi, seeing the snow around those amazing cedar trees and the Togakushi shrine, which is absolutely phenomenal. That evening, I can tell you, I was extremely tired, my goodness. Extremely tired. What a day. After Nagano, we finally returned to Tokyo, and we spent quite a deal of time in Tokyo. Of course, when we were in Tokyo, we went to Tokyo Disney Resort. We spent an amazing couple of days in Tokyo Disneyland and DisneySea. In Disneyland, we managed to hit up both parades, the daytime parade, Dreaming Up, and the Tokyo Disney Electric Light Parade, Dreamlights, in the evening, which I absolutely adore. My favorite parade in the whole world, which was so amazing. We also managed to try a bunch of hot snacks, mostly hot drinks. We were using the Today program, which I definitely recommend. If you go to Tokyo Disney Resort, get a Today program. It's all in Japanese, but you can work it out from the pictures. And we were finding where all the hot drinks were. We also found this amazing hot, like, lava dessert thing that we got at Camp Woodchuck, and managed to see Camp Woodchuck very late in the evening, which was super cool. In Tokyo DisneySea, we finally got to have that vegetarian curry. They now do more vegetarian meals in the Disney Resort restaurants. We had vegetarian curry at Casbah Food Court in the sort of Aladdin Arabian area. It was delicious, and that restaurant was super cool. We also got to try the Leonardo Challenge for the first time, which is a game that's completely in Japanese, but we managed to work it out using a bit of Japanese that I knew and a little help from Google Translate. So I do recommend it. If you can get there, give it a try with Google Translate. It does work. We also managed to finish up with some really lovely shopping in Tokyo. You know I love me shops in Tokyo. Yodobashi Camera, the Nintendo store, Pokemon Center. Absolutely love it. Yeah, it was really cool to get everything that I wanted to buy, and you know I'll always make some time for shopping in Tokyo. A few people have asked me would I recommend this route, and I think I'm probably going to be a little bit mixed about this. We obviously had an amazing time and saw some phenomenal things, but the route up from Matsuyama to Kanazawa was quite long. It took a whole day out of the trip, which again, because we were there for a long time, wasn't such a big deal, but if you were going for a couple of weeks even, that might seem a bit long to you. Also, we didn't really do anything in those couple of days that we were in Kanazawa, and we were kind of darting around sort of crazily between kind of Takayama, Kanazawa and Nagano, because we were trying to make this trip to the onsen work with going to Shirakawa Go. So that bit in the middle, I don't think it's the best way to do things. I think there's smarter ways to do it, but because of the dates, we had to kind of fit it in. Now, some of us are planning our trips in the future when all of this crazy stops being as crazy, and you may be thinking about whether winter is the right choice for you to go. I absolutely love going to Japan in winter, and I'm glad with the choice that we make for obvious reasons, but generally I love being in Japan during the winter season. Usually it's very bright. I found that this time we were a little unlucky with that. It wasn't as bright as it usually is around the winter, like sort of January winter time. It was actually quite grey, and because Japan is such a green country, everything was rather brown because obviously it was winter, so there was no leaves on the trees. So I think next time I'd really like to go May, because that time will be hot, but it won't be as humid yet, and things will be very luscious and green. But I still recommend Japan at winter time, very much so. One place that I did think would be a lot got more interesting actually in the summertime was Shima Onsen. We had an amazing time at Shima Onsen, and some of the sights that we saw were beautiful as we were walking around that onsen town. However, there were a number of onsens that we could just pop into, and some were sort of like unmanned. They don't have any person sitting there to, you know, sort of take tickets or anything. You can just go in and bathe. But because it was so cold, the idea of taking off clothes, showering in like, you know, 2 degrees Celsius, and then getting in the bath bit was the exciting bit, but you have to shower before you get in the bath, and that whole faff just seemed like too much. So I think we would have had a better time if we went in sort of a spring season. Also the city, it's not really a city, is it? Also the village of Shima Onsen I think would have been more lively as well, because there was quite a lot of places that were closed when we were there. So we had an amazing time, and that Kashiwaya Ryokan, oh yeah, it was awesome. But I do think a better trip would be had there in a warmer, or in the warmer months. So with the exception of a few boats, but not one because it was covered by the Japan Rail Pass, the majority of the time that we travelled around the country, we were travelling on Japanese rail trains and mostly using the JR Pass. Now we had a bit of a decision to make before we went, because when we were planning this trip we thought, my goodness, we're going to have to buy two-week Japan Rail Passes, which are going to be extremely expensive. But actually when we planned out all of this trip and knowing that we were going to spend quite a lot of time at Tokyo in the end, we decided to actually only buy 1 2-week Japan Rail Pass. And the reason why is because the only trip that we were doing at the beginning of the trip was to go from Tokyo to Kyoto. Then we were spending 1 whole week in Kyoto, and then from Kyoto we were doing a lot of traveling until we made it back to Tokyo 2 weeks later, when we were pretty much only sticking it out in Tokyo. So we took our Japan Rail Pass from the end of our Kyoto trip. So we actually paid for our bullet train from Tokyo to Kyoto. So we took the Japan Rail Pass from the end of the Kyoto trip all the way until we made it back to Tokyo. Now that 2-week Japan Rail Pass is 47,250 yen. I was actually shocked to find out, because I didn't think we did quite as well on this trip as we've done previously, but I was shocked to find out that with all of the trips that we did, and I'll show sort of an overview of them on the screen now, you'll see that I've estimated a few as well, sort of using the Japan Rail Pass in cities to use like the local transport within cities. Had we have paid for those tickets outright instead of using the Japan Rail Pass, that would have cost us about 87,000 yen. So we actually still saved 40,000 yen. So I get a lot of questions about whether the Japan Rail Pass is worth it, and generally yes. So actually, as long as you're leaving Tokyo, it's almost always worth it. If you are going just from Tokyo to Kyoto and back in a 1-week time period, the Japan Rail Pass will allow you to break even. So if you're, like I said, if you're traveling to a city like Osaka or Kyoto or Tokyo and then leaving it to go to another major city, most of the time it's going to be worth it to get a Japan Rail Pass. And unbelievably, we still managed to save 40,000 yen per person. That's per person this time with these trips that we did. I don't have many other money saving tips for you. Generally Liam and I don't eat at very fancy restaurants. We tend to be a little bit frugal with our food choices, and actually this time we ate in the room a few times. I remember we went to convenience stores and bought some ramen to make in the room, which was actually really fun, so we did that a little bit. Convenience stores generally are the best way to save money in Japan. They have ready-made meals and a ramen that you can make in your room and such, and it's all very reasonably priced. Ramen generally to eat out is actually a pretty cheap meal. So ramen tends to be around what, 1,000 to 1,500 yen, like sort of around that price. It's a very reasonable meal, so that tends to be a good way to save money. The other thing that we do is we tend to not be too crazy when it comes to hotel choices. So let's have a little bit of a chat about hotels. My favorite way to book hotels for Japan is actually on booking.com. I've been using booking.com for a really long time. I have no affiliation with them or anything, but I love their site, and I think I've been using it for quite a long time now. I've got a genius ranking. I think that gives me some money off every so often. Tip for using booking.com: check their prices on mobile when you make your bookings. I've found sometimes that you get some kind of 10% off or something when you book over the mobile app. So just if you're checking on the internets on your computers, also check on your mobile, because you might find that something is a little bit cheaper, which will give you a bit of a helping hand. We stayed in a bunch of Dormy inns this time: Kanazawa, Nagano, Kanda near Akihabara in Tokyo. Dormy Inn is one of my absolute favorite chains of hotels in Japan. They're extremely modest, they're well priced. They can be a little bit pricier, they can be a lot pricier at the weekends. It tends to be when lots of people take, you know, weekend trips and such, so they are pricier at the weekends, but they tend to be very reasonably priced, and they have an onsen on the higher floors. Onsen, they have a bathhouse on the higher floors, so you can go and have kind of a Japanese bathing experience, a lot more relaxed in your hotel, and that's why we absolutely love them. We actually stayed in a few more hotels that had that same kind of theme as Dormy Inn. So the Candio line of hotels, I don't know the history with them. These are the first two Candio hotels that I've ever stayed in. They seem to be relatively new. We stayed in one in Matsuyama and in Hiroshima. Both of them were well located, and they also had open air. I think just the one in Hiroshima was open air, but it's an open air bath on the roof, so you can't see much straight out because maybe then people would be able to see in, but you've got the sky above you as you're sitting in the bath, and when it's cold and you're warm in the bath, it is pretty amazing. It is pretty amazing. So I really like them. The rooms were actually very well sized, and yeah, like I said, well located, so really happy with Candio. In Tokyo, another kind of Dormy Inn sort of hotel was the Onsen UN Ryokan. Pretty sure I didn't get those words in the right order. But again, it's a business style hotel, so it has a tiny room and it has an onsen on the higher floors and amenities on most floors. So our floor had washing facilities on it, which was great because when you're traveling somewhere for a month, you need to wash your clothes a number of times. And actually we found that in most hotels we could wash our clothes. There was very few hotels that we stayed in that we couldn't do. The only thing that I found with Onsen UN is the rooms were absolutely tiny, very small rooms, but aside from that, beautiful brand new hotel and extremely well located in Shinjuku. In Kyoto we stayed in the Citadines Kyoto Karasuma Goji. I'll put the actual name below here. This must be one of the best hotels I've stayed in Kyoto. It's not a very Kyoto style hotel. It feels very Western and the rooms are very big. So if you're looking for space, I very much recommend it. It is very popular though. So although it's quite modest, it is very popular. So if you want it, book quite in advance. I know it's difficult to think about planning trips right now, but just a warning anyway. The other great thing about it is it has a kitchenette in the room. So if you're traveling with somebody with dietary requirements, and Liam is vegetarian, it's very helpful for us to have a kitchenette in the room so we can make some food in the room, you know, if we can't find anything else which is suitable. I've left 3 hotels for the end because they are worth a special mention, a very special mention. First of all, the Kashiwaya Ryokan in Shima Onsen. I mentioned it previously. It was absolutely beautiful place. It's a small ryokan in Shima Onsen. I think it only has a total of like somewhere around 15 rooms. They had a dining room where you went for your breakfast. They served you dinner in your room. They had an onsen which was sort of gender segregated, so sort of a normal style, you know, bathhouse. And then they had a number of private onsen, and usually when I visited onsen and they've had private baths, you have to pay extra, but this one was just free to use. So if the private baths were empty, you were able to just go and use them. And because we were out of season, generally there was always a private bath available for us to go. Actually, not generally, there was always a private bath for us to be able to go and use. So it was very good, very recommended. And oh my god, they were such lovely people, just very accommodating, and yeah, it was a real experience to stay there. One we were kind of expecting was going to be amazing, and it really was the Muji Hotel. I did a whole video on the Muji Hotel. Please go check it out if you haven't. It was an amazing experience, not crazy. Some people messaged me afterwards and actually said, isn't the hotel super expensive? I will leave a note below about how much we spent on our room that evening. It wasn't as much as some people messaged me about, but it was just beautiful. It was exactly what I was expecting. I adore Muji. It's the designs that I really love, that kind of simplistic Japanese Scandinavian style, and it was just It was just adorable. So I would stay there for an extremely long amount of time if I could, but like I was saying in the money saving section, we don't tend to spend that much on hotels every night. So for us it was a one night experience, and probably only a few nights experience when we return at an absolute maximum. But I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to go. One surprise hotel, sort of surprise, I was expecting it to be good, I didn't know that it was going to be this good, was the Auberge Hida no Mori, the hotel that we stayed in just outside of Takayama. So Hida no Mori, I believe, is the Hida forest, and this hotel was just so fantastic. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and it is a strange concept, but the hotel has an unbelievable Italian restaurant, so fantastic, and you can pay a little bit extra when you stay there to experience the Italian food. And they do breakfast in the morning, which was the same kind of quality as the evening meal that we got. I couldn't believe how they presented it. They talked us through everything. They talked us through it in English as well. They helped us choose wines in English. We weren't drinking wines in the morning, we're drinking wines in the evening, but they talked us through wines as well in English. It was just an unbelievable experience. The reason why it might not be for you though is it is a shared bathroom experience, but they run their bathrooms very much like bathhouses. So there's a room for you to get undressed, and then to wash yourself, and then sit in a bath once you are clean. So you don't sit in a bath dirty, you sit in the bath once you're clean. It was just a lovely experience. The whole thing was beautifully done, very simplistic, minimalistic, and excellent food. Just really cool as well. Just cool. Yeah, the place was just cool. I will definitely go back. Before I go, I wanted to touch on some of the favourite things that we did. I know we've spoken so much about this trip, but I just wanted to go through a few things that really stuck out as being so amazing this time, and that things that I would really recommend that you did, because there were so many things that we did, but these are things which I think you'd really enjoy, or many people would really enjoy. Obviously your trip is up to you, but these are my top recommendations and real memories that I've taken away from this trip. Togakushi Shrine in Nagano was just outstanding. Of course, we were super lucky to hit it during that snowstorm or whatever was happening, but it was just so beautiful, and the hike was lonely and serene. It was outstanding. Those trees, absolutely gorgeous. We also had a few other amazing hikes to Mount Misen in Miyajima. Our trip to Miyajima was obviously amazing. It's always a great place to go to when you're staying in Hiroshima, but the hike up to Mount Misen and the view over the islands was just so phenomenal. We also hiked from Kibune to Kurama. I actually think we did Kurama to Kibune. Somebody mentioned to me actually in a comment that doing it the other way would have meant that we would have had to walk uphill less. So never mind. So yeah, thank you for that. I'll remember that for next time. But that hike was also absolutely lovely, and the temple was just gorgeous. We saw so many temples and shrines, which of course you do when you visit Japan, but some of the favourites that really stick out are Byodoin. I can't believe I've never been there before. I think it's because it's a little bit out of Kyoto. People don't always opt to go and see it, but a day trip to Uji and then to the Byodoin was just so fantastic. When we went to Arashiyama, which is one of our favorite places in the whole world, so we'll always go there, it was such a wonderful experience to visit it in the rain. We went to that temple that had all those little big head statues everywhere, and seeing those in the rain with the moss all coming out was just so fantastic. And then visiting Daikakuji, I'm pretty sure it's Daikakuji, this a temple with interconnected buildings, and you could just walk under these sort of like corridors covered when it's just raining all around you, and you can hear it. Was just phenomenal. I also really loved Ishitagi Shrine, which was very eclectic, a very eclectic shrine on the Shikoku pilgrimage in Matsuyama. It had an underground tunnel, which was a bit scary actually. But I don't know, the whole place itself was just beautiful and strange, and had all these little wonders hidden everywhere. It was really, really cool. For my favorite activities, aside from obviously seeing lots of amazing sights and temples and shrines, we did the Tokyo Metro Mysteries this year, and I'm really sorry that I didn't get a video of that. Actually, a lot of my video footage from that day didn't save, so I didn't do a video, but it was a phenomenal experience. It's a sort of mystery treasure hunting style game in Tokyo, which you travel around using the metro. If you want to check out how it works, see one of my old Tokyo Metro Mysteries vlogs. It's a really amazing experience, and so check it out if you do go to Tokyo whilst it's on. I believe it's on usually every winter. Another thing that I did this trip was buy a Goshuin book. Goshuin is a seal stamp that you get when you visit shrines around Japan, to sort of show that you've been to the shrine and you've prayed there. So I managed to collect a bunch of different seal stamps from different shrines that we visited, and I'm looking forward to getting more in the book when I go back. They're absolutely beautiful, actually. I'm really glad that we started doing that. And of course we had those 2 amazing days at Tokyo Disneyland and DisneySea, which was really phenomenal activities to go and do. We also hit up a few high-rise views this time, which was completely unplanned, but seeing Mount Fuji from Shibuya Sky was just unbelievable. I'm so glad that we managed to get that done on our last day, I've probably missed a bunch of stuff. I know I haven't talked about food at all. I will make a special mention to Coffee Mamiya, which is the coffee shop that we visited on the last day and one of our favourite places to go for coffee in the world. But aside from that, I've not talked a lot about coffee. Well, I guess I've talked a little bit about coffee now, but I haven't talked a lot about food. So check out the vlogs if you want to see more of some of the food places that we went to. We did have some great ramen around, and if you're interested in vegetarian food, especially in Hiroshima, because there was a great Hiroshima okonomiyaki place that we went to that does purely vegetarian okonomiyaki, then check out the vlogs for that. What's next on the channel? So now that the Japan series is done, I have a few things to catch up on, actually. Naturally, I'm not going anywhere right now. I have no plans, nothing's booked. I think it's, I'm not in the mood to book somewhere, honestly. But part of the thing I love about traveling so much is that anticipation and all the planning that you do, obviously. So it kind of doesn't feel like I would be able to do that if I booked a trip right now, because there'll be a lot of negative anticipation, is that a thing, about, you know, all the worries that you'll have about traveling right now. So I haven't got anything booked myself. I'm thinking about things in the future, like I want to return to Japan in May 21, 22. We'll see when I feel it's a little bit safer and I'm ready to travel. Then that will be the time that I think I would book something, but I don't have that feeling yet, so I won't book until I have it, I guess. For now though, I still have some Disneyland California vlogs to put up. I haven't finished that series, so I should get myself together and get those videos out relatively soon. I also have a Shanghai Disneyland series, and now it's really old. I filmed this in June 2019, so if you're interested in seeing it, let me know. I feel a bit weird uploading something now that's so old, but if you are interested, then please let me know. Apart from that, I might go through some back catalogue stuff and find some other things that I can put up, which perhaps I haven't put up yet. I don't think I will go out much around London, although I would love to do some London stuff. I don't think we're going to go out much at the moment because our cases are rising here, so I think we're going to stay inside for a little bit. If anything, I may play some video games online, so let me know if you'd be interested in that, because I think it's more likely, if there's going to be any new footage, it will be video game related footage than anything else. So do tell me, actually, I'd be very interested, because I was thinking about doing some Twitch stuff. Anyway, I hope you're all safe and well, and you know, keeping yourself healthy. And thank you so much for watching this, for watching the Japan series, for sending comments, likes, or even just watching. Even if you just watched it, that's perfect. Like, that means so much. So yeah, if you have any questions or anything, leave them in the comments. And yeah, stay safe everyone, look after yourselves, and I will see you back on the channel another time soon. Thanks again, bye.